Hello, my name is Averil Gougeon, and today I will be covering JAK's Craft case. In this analysis, I will be going over JAK's Craft, which is a brewing company, and we will be discussing their HR measures. So JAK's Craft is a medium-sized business that employs over 50 employees. These employees have a union which was formed in 2008. JAK's Craft is currently looking to expand their production, and they would like to create a line of non-alcoholic beer. Advice for management. So there was a pre-grievance meeting, and this grievance was filed from Jasmine and the union, and it has merit based on Article 17.2. Article 17.2, discrimination and harassment will not be tolerated and will be considered just cause for dismissal. It is filed against Sly and management, and we should find a solution to it based on the following. So this grievance can be filed based on harassment and the decline in Jasmine's mental health. As defined, harassment is subjecting someone to unwanted conduct, and this conduct has the purpose of violating the victim's dignity. And as stated in Brown and Beatty, the severity of disciplinary sanctions vary with the extent of anxiety and or humiliation which the victim had to endure. And so we know that mental health is very important in a business setting and proactive reasons to deal with it. It increases employee engagement, morale, and commitment. We know Jasmine's mental health is in decline because Jasmine has cried in the bathroom frequently after any angry encounter with Sly. Even her coworker Adelis has mentioned she didn't look so good, and she has recently lost weight. This mental health falls under the compensation from the WSIA, which includes bullying and harassment. And so the evidence of Sly's behavior under these two grievances is that his behavior is aggressive and demanding. He yells at employees as a way to demonstrate in front of the office. His tactics of anger and fear have affected many employees besides Jasmine. He micromanages Jasmine and sends her for duties not in her description, like his lunch and coffee, which he could easily get himself. In one of these instances, Jasmine got the wrong lunch order for Sly. His reaction was to throw the sandwich on her desk and yell at her in front of the whole office. Sly has sworn at her, not listened to her, and cut her off mid-sentence multiple different times. These instances are not isolated incidences, and it shows that Sly's behavior needs to be corrected. As such, I have next steps for management. Management should begin immediately with a conversation with Sly. They would be able to tell him what has gone wrong and give him a chance to discuss how to correct his behavior. They would also determine actions that would help Jasmine and prevent further discipline to Sly and prevent advancement of this grievance. In order to do so, I have 3 recommendations. First, they should be providing mental health services for Jasmine to allow her to come to terms with the harassment that she has been given from Sly and to help her build back up that courage and confidence that she had before. Secondly, we should have a reporting system to monitor the situation. This way we know if that harassment occurs ever again, and we are able to keep people accountable. And thirdly, we should use progressive discipline. I understand termination is regular discipline for harassment, but due to the importance that Sly carries, I've decided that suspension should be Sly's punishment, and if any further harassment continues, immediate termination. So I have a grievance timeline in which in phase 1, we meet with Sly and we discuss what happened and the consequences. Then we join up with the union and Jasmine to have the pre-grievance meeting. And finally, we put into action the above recommendations and anything that has come up in the pre-grievance meeting. There are 5 other HR issues that I have discovered in JAK's Craft. The first being poor recruiting. In this poor recruitment, we particularly see issues in the selection process. An example of this is recruiting Jasmine. HR wasn't involved in the hiring decision at all, and she was chosen by Sly, who chose based on who he would work with, not based on company values or qualifications. As well, Coulter explains that in selection process, relevant credentials should be considered. Jasmine has no work experience and only has one undergraduate course in the field of sales. Therefore, she doesn't have the proper credentials to be considered a successful candidate, and yet she was hired. The next issue I see is overworking employees. Many of the staff at JAK's Craft are overworked. This is evident as production staff have complained to their union about overwork, and sales employees are turning in incomplete work. JAK's Craft also currently wants to expand and increase production, which will cause further overwork to the already exhausted employees. In order to fix both the poor recruitment and the current overwork in our employees, my solution is to create job postings online through LinkedIn and encourage qualified candidates to apply. We should also have multiple managers, especially those in HR, involved in all recruitments and interviews, and hire based only on qualifications and other values that the company has. Furthermore, we should increase the current number of full-time workers and increase employee overtime benefits. A third HR issue we have is failure to listen to staff. There have been multiple instances where staff have brought up issues only to be dismissed by more senior staff. An example of this is when Adelis brought up a concern to Nessa, and Nessa brought up this HR concern to her boss, Annika. She was immediately shut down from this concern, and Adelis was accused of not respecting or not liking Sly when truly it was simply a concern of someone else's well-being. In this, we know communication, as stated by Forbes, is not a one-way street. By the article written by Myatt, he's interviewed some of the most noted leaders of our time, and as good leaders do, they never miss an opportunity to listen. So I have 3 recommendations to help increase the listening in our workplace at JAK's Craft. The first recommendation is to create an anonymous feedback form on Google. This way, people don't feel like they're being called out or being accused of acting in a way that's manipulative or has other motivations. It's simply a concern that can be brought up and investigated. The second recommendation is to have management ask employees for feedback, and in fact, encourage it. It helps make that communication a two-way street instead of a one-way. And thirdly, give leadership training to management to help them learn to create trust. With stronger leadership skills, there will also be stronger listening skills and the competence and confidence to be able to hear others people's feedback without feeling attacked. The fourth issue I see is unfairness in staffing. Fairness with employees is important, as fostering a productive work environment and an atmosphere of trust among employees and customers. And an example of when JAK's Craft experienced an unfairness to staff is when Nessa attempted to discuss Sly's much larger compensation package with Annika. Annika refused to talk about it and told her it was none of her concern. Nessa has a much smaller salary, despite being at the same management level as Sly, worked there longer, and has no variable pay. So in employee fairness, this includes pay policies, equal benefits, and equal opportunities. And so my solution is to create salaries based on strategic compensation and job-based pay. We should also allow managers to approach HR and listen and investigate their requests and take them seriously. Thirdly, we should make employee benefits the same throughout all full-time employees. The last HR issue I'm here to discuss today is poor performance management. The definition of performance management by Coulter is process to plan, facilitate, monitor, review, document, and discuss performance to further the success of employees and the organization. Two examples where we see exceptionally poor performance management and those effects is in sales, where they haven't been monitored by their upper level management and senior employees, and therefore they are not handing in sales reports or they're having incomplete reports. Another thing that's an issue is Slide doesn't have a clear job description. And so this is really important because it helps manage the expectations of both the employees under him and his superiors as they know what he is responsible for. And so I have 3 final recommendations, and these would be to add 365 feedback to the system every 6 months. And based on that 365 feedback, to create action plans for each employee. And this should be done as soon as the feedback is submitted. And finally, all jobs should have a clear and descriptive job description to outline expectations. That way, between the employer and the employee, there's no guessing what your responsibilities and roles are. I have included a general timeline on how I plan to include these 5 phases into the HR system at JAK's Craft. Thank you very much for listening, and I now open the floor to any questions.